Oh, okay, yeah, Clean and Sober.
Yeah, it's a decent movie.
Yeah.
You should be on Facebook and YouTube now.
Oh, we're live?
Uh-oh.
Whenever you're live on Facebook and YouTube, and then you'll be live in a couple of minutes.
Okay. I love the advanced warning there. It's like, you're live.
Yeah.
Well,
By the way, everyone's watching you now.
we always put it on to make sure we're working.
Fair enough.
And the other streams in.
And you sound fine to me. Do I sound good to you?
And you guys sound.
I actually don't hear you in my headphones.
Okay, that's kind of a problem.
Okay, there. When you moved closer to your mic, I can hear you.
Just a distance thing.
Yeah.
Okay.
You want to be louder?
No, I think it's good. It was just a matter of he was too far back.
But you can hear it.
I can't hear him.
You can hear me now.
Yes.
And hopefully that includes all of our listeners.
See, this is exactly why when I show people the videos, I say, jump in about like a minute or two.
Yeah.
Start the video. Yeah.
But I think there's some fun to us being off the cuff, and we're always off the cuff, but
Yeah, us
candid,
trying
not
to
knowing
figure
we're
our-
being filmed.
Yeah.
So we've got Beth listening to us at the very least.
Oh, nice.
You guys are on, so whenever
So we're going to get started. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to tonight's episode of Paranormal Encyclopedia. I am, as always, your host, Kevin Mears, demonologist, paranormal investigator, and the Paranormal Encyclopedia. And finally returning,
Back from beyond, author Brian McKinley.
welcome back, Brian. You've been missed.
Yes. So my doctor has advised me not to lift any heavy topics. So
We picked an easy one for the night.
We went with movies for tonight.
I was thinking about that. It's like we're going to do movies, but I think why narrow it? We can do books,
Oh, sure. We can
video
talk about
games,
books.
pop culture, just like paranormal and pop culture, I think.
Yes, there we go. That's our title.
So before we get started, as always, we've got to do our mandatory plugs for our two sponsors.
Yes.
And
We
this
love
is
you.
particularly appropriate for tonight, given we're going to be talking about books, and if you like some of the authors we're going to talk about, or if we interest you, I think we'll probably manage to do that. Remember to check them out by going to audibletrial.com/paranormale, audibletrial.com/paranormale, where you can sign up for a free 1-month membership. You'll get free audiobook, so you can listen to some of these people live if you want to check them out.
Yes.
It's a great service. If you decide after the free month that this isn't for me, you get to keep the audiobook.
And there's some great books up there.
Oh, good. Including 3 of this
Including
guys.
my own. Yes.
And probably most of the ones we'll talk about tonight.
Probably.
Also, if you're, another, probably an even bigger concern than free audiobooks these days is internet security. Am I right?
Yes.
So you're online, you're worried about your, identity theft and people stealing your credit card numbers. A good choice to go with for security is a virtual private network. I am not the tech head to explain all of it, but basically you're logging into this network and then from there accessing the internet, which means now all your information is going through a double encryption to a website, like if you're buying something off of Amazon. And the encryption level is military grade.
Yeah, which is about as good as you can get commercially.
You can go. There'll be a link in the description and pinned in the comments later. Just because it's too long to read it on the air. Military grade encryption, over 4,000 servers all over the world. Pretty reasonable price. Maybe a little on the pricey side, but I think it's worth it. You get a 30-day money back guarantee. So if you try and you think it's not for you, you can always get your money back.
Yeah, they do have different pricing plans. I saw on the thing. So depending on your budget and how far you want to take it, if you sign up for a year, you get, like, for instance, a better price than if you buy just a month. But still, for a month, it's like, I think it was like, what, 15 bucks?
Yeah, it's something around
like
15
that.
bucks. It's very, there are less expensive options, I'll be honest. But here's the thing. Most VPNs, having done a little bit of research on this, now the advantage is if you're using the internet to do anything questionable, and I am not advocating doing so by any means.
No,
but
our lawyers have advised us not to do that.
Also common sense. But the thing is, your ISPN, whoever you're getting your internet service from, keeps a record of all of that.
Yeah.
Now, if you're using a virtual private network, most virtual private networks also store those records, so that can actually be subpoenaed by the government. NordVPN, that doesn't work for two reasons. One, because they, according to them, I mean, who knows if they're telling? Yeah, we could hypothetically say they're not telling the truth, but according to all their official information, they keep those records constantly deleted, so there's nothing there for the government to find. And even if they did, the company is in Panama. The United States doesn't have authority to subpoena Panama.
Exactly, and as a private company, they can do that. They can keep you confidential.
It's another nice advantage of NordVPN, and that you can go out. You're logging in from the United States. You don't have to have the new, because they're going to give you a new IP. You don't have to have that IP be from the United States. You can have it be from Canada, Mexico, Europe.
It probably won't be. I think they randomly assign.
No, actually, you get to.
Oh, you can choose.
You get, it's to a region, so you're picking the U.S. and it could be just about anywhere in the country.
Oh.
But you can choose and log in from another country entirely.
But that way, you don't. If you're worried about, obviously, if you're worried about security, and for someone finding you.
Another reason, if you live in, say, China, where there's the Great Firewall of China, where they won't let you access a ton of websites, and there are other countries that censor the internet in this way, and
lots of them.
I will say honestly, as a member of the United States, where we don't do this
yet.
Let's not get into the yets, but we don't do this. I'm not a fan of censorship in any form.
No.
And NordVPN, well, yeah, you're logging in from China, but you can show it as you're coming from Japan or the United States, and you can get around the Great Firewall.
Yeah, it saves you from your own government if need be.
So again, we don't recommend or condone illegal activity in any way, shape, or form, but there are legitimate uses for it that are certainly moral, if not necessarily legal, wherever you are.
There's all kinds of things. There's like people, like abused spouses that are hiding from guys that have computer knowledge.
Oh, and Baron Voltage is in the YouTube chat and welcomes you back. And apparently he's going to call in at some point.
Awesome. Yay. One of our favorite guests.
Yes, I'm going to give the number out now just in case Baron or anyone else wants it, because we're always open to calls. It's 609-807-2492, 609-807-2492. You can also just look right here. It's right on the screen. Oh, that's probably the Baron. Good evening. Welcome to Paranormal Encyclopedia. Who is this?
It's Baron.
There we go.
How you doing, buddy?
Hey, how goes it?
I provided some cheap theme music for you, some intro music.
Should have been Cremina Burana. Come on, this is me.
Well, okay, true.
We weren't 100% that it was you, but you have a legitimate point.
Yeah.
So welcome. You going to come back and visit us soon?
Yes, hopefully. At some point, maybe next week.
Definitely.
That would be excellent.
We have no topic for next week, so you can get with us on Facebook, and the three of us can figure out what we want to talk about.
Yeah. Yeah, because there were some topics that we touched on last time you were here that we didn't get to fully explore, and we kept saying, let's do that on a future episode. So I think
absolutely
we'll
have to go back and look at some of those episodes and see what those topics
were. If anybody's wondering what we're talking about, this is Baron Voltage. He's been on the show twice now, I want to say.
Mm-hmm.
Was it twice?
Yeah.
Okay.
You can look up his interviews. He's a great guy. He's a great guy and a good friend of the show's.
Yes, vampire hypnotist.
Yes.
You don't get to.
There's still plenty more about hypnotism we could talk about.
Oh yeah.
Certainly.
Hypnotism, mind control. We can talk about the whole history of mind control and experiments and stuff. That's always
MK
fun.
Ultra.
Yeah. There's all that rich stuff to explore. So yeah.
So, given the topic of the night, I have to ask, Baron, what's your favorite scary movie?
It really depends on your variation of what you would call horror. I mean,
that is a good point.
I was thinking
exactly.
I was thinking we would do categories to make it
Long
easier.
Stockings has to be the scariest of all movies. Though.
No, I don't know about that.
Somebody had to make a completely random choice. This isn't horror at all.
Night of the Lepus.
Yeah.
But that's trying to be a horror movie.
Most terrifying film ever made.
The line in the one Scream movie, it's like, what's your favorite scary movie? Showgirls. Absolutely terrifying.
Showgirls, yeah.
Yes.
It's like, wait.
That was a good answer. All right.
I mean, you've got found footage films which allow us to sort of feel a little bit more relatable to that particular type of horror because, in a way, it's not so over the top that we're like, this couldn't happen, but at the same time, you know that it's over the top, so it adds that extra added boost of like uneasiness and creepiness and suspense terror.
Well, it did at least at first.
You've also got these like gore fest by like Eli Roth and call that horror. And
I can't.
No.
I can't do those.
As I think I've heard them accurately described more than once, I am not a fan of the torture porn genre.
Yeah,
exactly.
You know,
the fact that it's been lumped in with horror is a little bit disconcerting to me.
Well, I mean, horror has always sort of suffered from. It's got its high points and it's got its low points. I mean, there's always been the gore.
The later installments of Friday the 13th.
Oh yeah, well,
not that I've ever been a fan of the series.
Even look at stuff like Mario Bava and Dario Argento.
Yeah,
You know, those movies, not much in the way of plot. Pretty much just pure exercises in
gore,
creepy visuals and gore and stuff.
Oh man,
So
there are two trilogies that I actually saw that were like so way over the top. But at the same time, they did kind of inspire a little bit of uneasiness because they combined both the gore and horror as well as the reality. There was the August Underground collection, which is a trilogy, and then you've got the Slow Torture Puke Chamber trilogy.
Oh, God.
Oh, good God.
Neither of those sound like anything I'd want to see.
Well, I would think there's a...
But that's me.
There's a movie, I haven't gotten around to seeing it yet, but I've been told good things. I think it was an HBO movie, and it was based on Ted Bundy. And there's a comment I've heard from many people who have watched the films, that there's the one scene where you just see him dragging the victim off screen, and many people found that, just dragging off to some uncertain fate, much more terrifying than the ones where you actually see them kill.
The imagination is always scarier. I'm trying to think of which one, because there were a few Ted Bundy movies. I've seen just about all of them. There's actually a new one coming out where they've got Zac Efron playing Ted Bundy, which that ought to be interesting.
Ooh. Yeah, I'm curious.
Mr. Pretty Boy, heartthrob.
Well, for that matter, in terms of what you don't see is scarier than what you do, and ironically, the fact that you don't see it is mostly a mistake. Jaws, the original Jaws.
Yeah.
It is
technical problems with the shark.
Yeah, the shark was a pain in the ass. It almost never worked.
Yeah.
I actually just found out a recent little factoid about that film.
Oh?
Yeah. Well, try this on for size. You remember the scene when Hooper's in the shark cage?
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. The original script had Hooper dying like he did in the book. Sorry,
exactly.
Spoilers.
Yeah.
Okay. The thing is,
it's a 40-year-old movie. Deal with it.
Yeah. When that shark slams into that cage, that's not the mechanical shark. That was an actual shark that had wandered onto set.
Oh, jeez.
Yeah.
Darn great whites. They don't actually.
Because it was such a genuine scene. They figured, we're keeping it in the film, and we're rewriting the script so that Richard Dreyfuss's character stays alive. Because that was too awesome to cut.
It really is.
Yeah.
I did not know. I mean, there's a lot of fascinating things
his
about
reaction.
Jaws.
You can see it. Yeah, the documentary on the making of Jaws. If you ever manage to get a hold of the collector's edition DVD, they have some great special features.
But I think that movie works really well for a couple of reasons. One is the fact you see the fin, you hear the da-dum, da-dum. You see somebody yanked.
The shark for the most part.
You see somebody yanked beneath the surface. You don't see what did it. The fact you very rarely see the shark.
Yep.
And the fact they use, I mean, certainly there's gore elements in the movie, but they use the gore appropriately.
In
moderation. Yeah. Gore is not always a bad thing in a horror movie. You just have to understand how to balance it properly.
Yeah, and it's got to be used for dramatic effect, not for shock.
Yeah.
That's the problem, is when you use it just to gross people out, then your movie pretty much becomes all about, look at what our special effects guys can do. Look at what our practical effects guys can do.
Cannibal Holocaust. The tribute.
Exactly.
In defense of Cannibal Holocaust, let's be fair, there are people that were convinced it actually was real footage.
Oh yeah,
it was the same
well
done. The August Underground collection too.
Yeah. Well, they have those movies.
I'd say the other great example of it's what you don't see as scary is, of course, the original Alien.
Yeah.
Which is another... They milk the heck out of you. Just get glimpses of this thing.
Yeah, for what you see of the suit. Not much.
Well, the second movie was... I mean, the first movie is a great horror movie.
Yeah.
The second movie is a great sci-fi movie. But it's not a horror movie.
No, I mean, it's got some horror elements, but it's primarily an action movie.
And part of why I think the second one... I think the first one was a better movie. The second one's a great movie. I'm not saying Aliens is a bad movie. I just personally prefer the original. And part of why I prefer the original is it was very atmospheric and very creepy.
It's a haunted house movie in space.
Exactly.
I kind of prefer the second one just because I like the characters in
Which
Aliens
is perfectly fair.
More than the characters in Alien.
You know? And where I'm just rating it based on the monster and how they handle the alien.
Oh, definitely.
It just loses something to me to have it. The monster is more of an open character the way it is in the later movies.
Yeah. Well, the shock has worn off. It's like the Predator or any of the other, like even in the Jaws movies. The further they went on, the more and more often
let's face
you
it,
saw the
pretty
shock.
much. The Jaws movie started here and then went boom, really fast.
Even the second one is basically crap. I used to think
it's not as bad as like the later ones, but
no, but it's still pretty.
It's
bad.
not a good movie.
It's still pretty bad.
Whereas the original, which my fiance Amisha likes to call the Tale of Two Movies, and she has a point because the thing you watch the movie. It's very action and intense and moving in the first half of the movie, and then they get on the boat. And it's them sitting around and singing sea shanties and trying to catch the dang fish.
Well, it is almost like the first half of the movie is a genuine suspense thriller. The second is almost a guy's sort of adventure movie, where it's not quite Moby Dick, but it has elements of it. Of that, yeah. The guys get together, and the music even changes tempo and becomes brighter.
They make it work beautifully.
Yeah.
But it really is a completely differently paced, themed, and stylized movie than the first half.
Almost like From Dusk Till Dawn is essentially two movies spliced together. You've got this very gritty kind of Tarantino action movie that suddenly becomes a vampire gore fest halfway through and turns into a like splatter comedy almost, where you've just got Tom Savini running wild both behind the camera and in front of the camera.
Well, yeah, Savini being one of the great makeup artists.
Yeah.
I have to admit I do not like Quentin Tarantino at all. I find Pulp Fiction incomprehensible. I find Kill Bill dull in the extreme. I don't understand the hype people have over the fight scenes in that movie. I'm sorry. It's like, okay, I'm going to swing at you with my katana, and then I'm going to spend 5 minutes staring at you angstily while I hold my sword. How is this a good fight scene?
Well, it's practically a live-action anime. I mean, it really is.
And I'm not an anime fan either.
Me neither. I'm not a fan. I'm not a Kill Bill fan.
But the one Quentin Tarantino project, I guess, because he wasn't even the active director, as I understand it, that I enjoyed is From Dusk Till Dawn. And it's not because it's a good movie. It's not a good movie.
No.
It's a lot of fun, but it's not a good movie.
You know, it wasn't actually even meant to be a movie. It was originally a project that he wrote. From what I understand, it was for a special effects company, just as something that they could use to sort of test out their stuff. And when his movies suddenly became really popular, the studio scrambled, and Tarantino didn't have any new scripts written. He had Pulp Fiction, he had Reservoir Dogs, he had True Romance. Tony Scott snapped up True Romance and filmed it, and they're like, we need more Tarantino movies. And he's like, well, I don't have any. I haven't written any more. And they found this old script he had written, and dug it out and said, all right, we're going to make this movie. He's like, are you kidding?
Again, it's not a good movie, but it's a lot of fun.
Yeah, no, it's a caper that turns
into... the priest just blessing everything.
And holy water balloons and stuff. It's
jackhammer steak.
Yeah, it's ridiculous. But it is amusing. Speaking of, we could transition into... since we got Baron Voltage, the vampire hypnotist, Let's start off with our top 5 favorite vampire movies.
Indeed.
We'll start with movies. If we want to go into books,
I think we should do books as well.
We'd certainly talk about books too, because they're going to be different criteria. But so, Baron, what would be your top 5 vampires? You still there? Did we lose him?
Baron?
We talked too long. We put him to sleep.
He's still there.
Maybe he went away from the phone.
Yeah, he says he's still talking.
Uh-oh.
We're not hearing you.
Uh-oh.
Something strange is going on.
So this might be a technical thing.
Or it could be
Did the switch get?
with his...
Oh, with the ghosts.
Okay. Baron, why don't you... Yeah, he's going to call back in. Meanwhile, when I talk about my favorite vampire movies,
go for your 5, and I'll list my 5.
I'd have to say for number 1, I have to go with Bela Lugosi's 1931 Dracula, hands down. Nosferatu.
I'm back.
Solid choice.
Welcome back. Since we had the technical problems with you, I'm doing my 5. So, number 1's Bela Lugosi's Dracula, Nosferatu, Lost Boys, which is the 80s kid in me.
Yeah.
The original Fright Night.
Yes. Excellent
Oh, that's
film.
a good one.
Excellent film. Solid choice.
Let's see, what other really good vampire movies? Actually, I think if nothing else, I would go with Ford Coppola's Dracula.
Okay.
That was okay.
Bram Stoker's Dracula.
It's like the first R-rated movie I saw in the theater by myself. So it kind of has a special place to me, and I wasn't 18 at the time.
And it is actually still technically the most accurate to the book.
Yeah.
Even though it changes
a lot.
It changes a lot. It's still the most accurate. It has all the characters and most of the major sequences.
I will also say, for the record, as an honorable mention, as much as I dislike her books, I enjoyed the movie Interview with the Vampire.
Yeah. That's actually my number 1.
So, Baron, what are your top 5?
All right. Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Fantastic. Willem Dafoe and Shadow of a Vampire.
Oh, great movie.
Yes.
Yes.
That
Definitely,
was awesome.
without a doubt, best portrayal I've ever seen of one. In particular because of a lot of the what I would call realism nature of it.
Not to mention they got the idea from the Vampire Masquerade role-playing game.
Fun stuff.
Exactly. I also found Bram Stoker's to be okay. I can't really complain. Fright Night definitely is up there. Daylight. What was that movie with Ethan Hawke and Sam Neill?
Oh, Daybreakers.
Daybreakers. I kind of liked that one too.
I haven't seen it myself. I've heard good things.
It's an interesting premise. I didn't like the way it eventually played out, but I really liked the setup.
Yeah,
I thought it could have had a better ending.
Was interesting.
Yeah, I thought it could have had a better conclusion, but.
And here's one more of a comedic: Dracula Dead and Loving It.
Oh, it's a brilliant movie.
Wow.
The comedy of errors in and of itself. I mean, that one is kind of tied with Once Bitten.
Oh, jeez. There's an 80s.
Yeah.
There's an 80s.
But Leslie Nielsen as Dracula is just so much fun.
And I've actually used that reference in my vampiric hypnosis presentation.
Wow.
Where you have to be very specific with what it is you're telling your subject, because if you're in the middle of a class doing a demonstration and you're trying to tell one person, guaranteed somebody else in that audience has already been dropped out too. So you have to be like, you sit down. You go to the door. No, not you. You go to the door. Not that door, the other door. Wait.
Nice.
Nobody move. I'm coming in.
Okay.
Yes.
So our vampire guy, Brian, what is your 5?
All right, my
aside from
5.
Interview, which is your number 1.
Yeah, my first one is Interview with the Vampire, just because as a well-rounded film, I think it's just got a lot of it. It's got a little of everything. Another one is definitely The Lost Boys, because how can you not?
Kiefer Sutherland is a vampire.
Yeah, still one of the best vampires ever.
And the Super Psycho Vampire.
Only is a vampire too. I mean, come on.
Yeah. Edward Herrmann. I mean, how often would you cast him as a vampire? Like, never.
But it works.
That's
it just
perfect
works.
vampire. You don't see it coming.
Exactly. Fright Night as well. I'm also going to go with that one because it was awesome.
I enjoyed the remake, but the original is just the original. It's the original.
Yeah. Blade 2. Surprisingly, just because as a combination of action and it's kind of like The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly with vampires.
The Blade trilogy, like it or not, is such an important set of movies. It's like, and it's the thing that everybody talks about. It's like, oh, Black Panther, we're finally getting African American superhero. It's like,
and
the superhero.
Wesley Snipes going, oh, really?
I think his exact words would probably be, "Bitch, please."
Yeah, rolling over in his tax prison. Like,
oh no, he's out. He is in fact out now.
I know,
but it's like,
I mean,
it's just
and
a
it
funny
deserves
reference.
credit for that because it's also the movie that redeemed the superhero genre and got people interested in it.
It was one of Marvel's first successful movies after Howard.
It was
the
one
Duck.
of their first.
And it also managed to help make up for the damage Batman and Robin had done in Batman Forever.
Yes.
It's like,
it was one of the first R-rated superhero movies.
Yes.
So yeah, but Blade 2, just because Guillermo del Toro, amazing director, a wonderful visual sense. The last one on my list is kind of like Daybreakers, Near Dark, which is the film that got overshadowed by Lost Boys back when it first came out. But you've got Lance Henriksen, Bill Paxton, and Jeanette Goldstein as vampires right after coming off of Aliens. And it's just amazing. The ending leaves a little bit to be desired. But the whole rest of the movie building up to that point is just awesome. It's a vampire Western. And it actually works, which is...
I think I've seen that
two
one.
ideas, yeah.
It's been years, but I have seen. I do want to change one of my answers, though.
You're allowed.
Inspired it. John Carpenter's Vampires.
Oh,
I also really enjoy that movie.
I did not like that one. I was not a fan.
It's another one of those. It's kind of, my feelings about it are very similar to Dusk Till Dawn. It's really not a great movie.
No, it's
but
not.
It's fun.
It is fun. I mean, as much as
James Woods as a vampire hunter is awesome.
I love James Woods, and I love John Carpenter, and I really wanted to love that movie. The problem was I just thought the script was really weak, and you spend far too much time having to watch Daniel Baldwin, who is one of the most anti-charismatic actors on the face of the earth, and Sherilyn Fenn or whatever, or what was her, Cheryl Lee, or
the one that starts becoming the vampire,
the chick that becomes the vampire, who again has like almost no acting talent at all. The only thing she's in there for is nudity, and it's kind of like
well, I find interesting,
could have been a fantastic.
I do
movie.
really enjoy the movie. It's actually based on a book called Vampires with a $sign for the S.
Which I read.
I did too.
Yeah.
I think the movie was vast, and I've had people tell me the other way around. The movie is much better.
The book is not that great either. No, sadly, and apologies to the author.
What I find funny is people complain about the book, about the movie, is the vampire seems to have no motivation. But it's like, okay, in the movie he's trying to basically eliminate his weakness to sunlight so he can kill more people. In the book, he doesn't really have that much motivation. He's just killing people
in the book,
because he's a vampire, and that's what vampires do.
He barely has a character in the book.
I think, although I have to admit, the one comment that's great in the book is just when he's when the main character is talking to the priest, and it's like, and they're talking about the silver bullets. It's like, I don't want to know. Nope. I don't want to know what those are for. It's just a brief acknowledgement. Yes, werewolves are a thing in this world too.
Yep.
But they hunt vampires. So to get off of movies, and although still on vampires.
Okay.
Yes.
Vampire.
I'll say one of my favorite. Actually, I was going to say TV, specifically anime, because there are a handful of anime I like. Is Hellsing.
Have not seen that.
Vampire Hunter D.
Oh God, yes.
That's pretty much everybody's
the
like
original,
go-to,
not the remake.
Yeah,
I thought the remake was actually very good. It's not the original, but I think it gets more hate. It gets a lot more hate than it deserves.
Well, it's hard to remake something that's considered a classic.
Well, it wasn't a remake; it was a sequel. It was based on. So there is an actual series of light novels that were written in Japan that the movies are based on.
Okay.
And The first movie is based on the novel Vampire Hunter. The first novel Vampire Hunter D. It's a nice simplification of the story, but it's a great movie.
Somewhere in the book, I'm assuming they explain why he has a hand with a mouth.
No, not really.
That never made any sense to me.
And then the second one is based on the third book, and they actually do one thing I think much better in the movie than the author did, because in the book, the whole Camilla thing at the end with the evil vampire woman who's kind of manipulating everything isn't in the book at all. It just and the book suffers from the fact there's really no central antagonist driving anything. It's just this chase of this vampire going to this rocket to try to get into outer space.
Yeah.
It's like
vampires.
Well, no, they actually explain the space part better, because basically what the premise, for anyone who's wondering if anyone knows Vampire Hunter D, is it takes place in 12,090 AD. So it's long in our future, but there was a nuclear war. The humans mostly died out. The nuclear weapons don't affect vampires. The vampires rose up and took over and stabilized civilization and got everything back on track. And given their longer lifespans and things of that nature, they were able to start advancing our technology. So yes, eventually we got rockets into space, but it wasn't humans that designed the rockets, it was the vampires. They put the first colonies on Mars and things of that nature. But eventually their society started to fall back and recede, and then the humans rose up and killed most of them. And now you have this post-apocalyptic setting where there's a handful of bounty hunters, like the titular D, out trying to get rid of the last of the vampires.
Right.
But Vampire Hunter D is a great piece of anime. Hellsing is also an enormous amount of fun. Just in one of the singular most psychotic interpretations of Dracula ever. I mean, basically, imagine if Abraham von Helsing ran a monster hunting organization for England, and instead of killing Dracula, captured him and spent 100 years binding him with magic that he had to follow the commands of the Helsing family, and B, unlocking like every conceivable power a vampire could have, and then turning him loose as a weapon against other
Dracula
vampires.
2000, the movie.
Oh,
sort of, yeah.
Yeah, that was
Except
that was another one of those should have been awesome, like could have been cool.
I enjoy that movie. It's not a good. Again, by no means would I call it a good movie, but I thought the Judas Iscariot angle was an interesting take.
That was about the one
especially
thing really
portrayed by Gerard Butler.
Yeah.
That was
a very thin Gerard Butler.
Yeah, well, it was very early in his career.
I'll say another one, and it's a made-for-TV movie, so it straddles the gap. The Third Librarians movie.
Oh yeah, the one with the vampire, that was nice.
And specifically with Dracula, and this beautiful play of the entire movie is the Russian, basically old school KGB agents trying to resurrect Dracula because they're sick of the fact that Soviet Russia is gone, and they think Eastern Europe needs an iron hand. So the movie is they find Dracula, what they assume is Dracula's corpse, and then they're trying to find this chalice made out of the 30 pieces of silver that Judas was given to sell out Christ, because Judas, taking off 2000, Judas is the first vampire.
There's actually some folklore to back that up, although not much.
Yeah, and the thing is, I've seen accurately pointed out, and people complaining about both movies, it's like, yes, there is a bit of folklore that Judas was the first vampire. Vampire folklore predates Judas by a few hundred years.
At least.
Just a bit.
Couple thousand, really.
Yeah.
But
well, I was deliberately understating.
Yeah. But so okay, if we're doing now as far as TV and TV movies, probably my favorite would be the newer Salem's Lot adaptation, which I thought was extremely.
I thought the
well
first
done.
half was great, and I thought they completely ruined it with the way that they took the second half.
There was some question. I could see you could have some complaints about some of it, but I thought on the whole the way they played things out, the way Rutger Hauer, portrayed
Rutger Hauer was
Barlow,
a good vampire.
Fantastic. It was a lot closer to the book than
the first half is very faithful to the book. The second half goes off the rails and ignores the book almost entirely.
A little bit.
You can't talk about Rutger Hauer as a vampire and not remember Buffy the Vampire Slayer, the movie.
I was trying not to.
Or for that matter, Buffy the Vampire Slayer, the TV series.
The TV series and Angel, yes, I will happily talk about those. The less said about Buffy the movie, probably the better.
Well, the thing to keep in mind with the movie is it's like...
Even Rutger couldn't
The
say
movie
that.
is a really good example of why, well, executive meddling isn't always a bad thing. And I want to switch us off vampires in a minute, and I'll talk about an example. My favorite paranormal fiction, and where some executive meddling has been a really good thing.
Yeah.
But the reason that the Buffy the Vampire Slayer movie didn't work is largely two things. One is the studio getting involved and saying, nope, Joss, you can't do that. And the other, is, as I understand it, is Donald Sutherland being a prima donna and going, I want my character to be more important.
Yep.
Because originally the movie was much closer to the TV series, where I forget Merrick, that's his name.
Yeah.
So Merrick was going to be a watcher in the same style that Giles was, where it's like, no, he's part of this organization. He was sent. Like but Donald Sutherland wanted to be more important than that, so he turns into this immortal character that keeps reincarnating the way the Slayer does.
Yeah,
and it's like, no, dude,
it messed a lot of things up. It's almost a reverse of like what happened with Alec Guinness in Star Wars, where his refusal to play the character the way George Lucas wanted kind of wound up making Ben Kenobi a really cool, like, noble guy with some dignity, rather than the sort of, I mean, if you can imagine Alec Guinness trying to play Yoda the way the puppet played him. That was the original conception of Kenobi,
in fact,
according to
Alec
Lucas.
Guinness repeatedly said as the movies progressed, can't the little green guy say this?
Yeah. He just was like, I just don't even really want to be a part of this.
Granted, Lucas had some very, even originally, before we get into the special editions and prequels, he had some really strange ideas, like wanting Yoda to be played by an actual chimpanzee.
That one I hadn't heard.
That just made my head hurt.
Yeah.
He had a thing with chimpanzees. He wanted Yoda to be a chimpanzee in like a mask, and he wanted the Emperor. And actually, no, correction. The Emperor's face was partly a chimpanzee superimposed with an older woman.
I can kind of see that in the final makeup. Yeah, I think the original design for the Wookiees bore a lot more of a resemblance to chimps as well.
The earliest concept art for the Wookiees, not so much, because if anyone has seen the TV series Rebels, the character of Geb, that's what Wookiees were originally intended to look like.
Right, but there's a certain element of chimp
to a degree
face in there.
But it works reasonably well.
Yeah, it's not a terrible idea, and if you had never if you hadn't seen the Sasquatch version of Chewbacca, then a chimp would have worked.
We're getting off topic, but I'll say as a funny aside, and it relates because it relates to the paranormal. When they were filming Return of the Jedi, Peter Mayhew, who was playing Chewbacca, was not allowed to go around the forest on his own in costume because people were the producers and everyone was seriously worried somebody would shoot him thinking he was Bigfoot.
Yeah, he had to have guys in like bright colored hunting costumes like with him to
at all times because they didn't want him shot as Bigfoot. Yeah. Which
we suffer for our film craft.
Oh yeah.
So to go back a little more on topic and off topic of vampires, because nothing against vampires, but it's supposed to be paranormal in media, not just vampires.
We got werewolves coming up. We got witches. We got all kinds.
I'll
say
my favorite paranormal fiction in general at the moment is unquestionably the Dresden Files.
As far as novels, that's
across media platforms, movies, books, TV series. Hands down, it's the novels. And interestingly enough, there's two cases where the publishers meddling with the book, by Jim Butcher's own admission, improved the situation. One of the series was originally, the first book, which is called Stormfront, was originally going to be called Semi-Automatic Magic.
Yeah.
And the publishers went, dude, no. And that's where Stormfront, which I think is a better title, and so does he.
Yeah.
And the other is...
He also wrote it out of spite originally.
I've heard a couple of versions of how he originally wrote it.
Well, he said his writing professor wanted him to do something in that vein. he didn't really want to, so he said, okay, fine, I'm going to write the most cliched urban fantasy you've ever seen, and it's going to be ridiculous. And it wound up being awesome. And
which might also explain why the first book, in my opinion, is good. But like a lot of things, the series hits its stride with the second. Like
second and
a lot of TV series, for example, it's like Supernatural. I thought the first season was good, but I think it really finds its voice in the second season.
Same thing with like Angel.
Third, but it needed time to find its footing, basically.
Yeah.
The other example that is epic is there's a scene. Anyone who hasn't read Dresden Files, to give you a quick synopsis of concept, it is the only wizard in the Chicago phone book.
Professional wizard.
Vampires, werewolves, ghosts, demons, angels, fairies, forgotten gods. The list of creatures that show up in the books gets longer and longer and longer. I mean, I'm reading through the most recent book, because the other great thing Jim Butcher does is he's written a whole bunch of short stories, like a lot of authors that take place in this world that aren't part of the main series of books. They get published in side collections. So whenever the contracts end up with the side collections, he collects them into a single book, so you can read them all without having to buy 20 paperbacks.
Yeah.
So he did that again with a book called Briefcases.
I want to read that now.
And he makes a comment, because each story has some commentary from him about the ideas, where the ideas came from. There's a trilogy of stories about Bigfoot.
Yes.
And he makes the comment about it that's like, I reached the point in my professional career where I realized I hadn't made adequate space in my writing life for Bigfoot. And this was clearly very embarrassing, and I needed to fix it. And the stories are an enormous amount of fun.
Yeah.
But he had this situation with the 7th book, where it was the first book that was going to go to hardcover. So the publisher's like, can we do something really cool for the first hardcover, something to really set it off? Which is so he took what was supposed to be the 8th book, which is a story about necromancers, pushed it ahead a book, which led us to one of the most truly epic scenes in fiction history, which is riding a zombie Tyrannosaurus Rex into battle.
Yeah, down the streets of Chicago.
Yes.
That immediately is full of epic win. You can't go wrong with that.
Oh, yeah. No, there are pictures of it, and it's amazing.
If there's ever a zombie apocalypse and I have to pick a fictional character to save the day,
yeah,
zombie Tyrannosaurus Rex.
Yeah, he gets it's Sue.
Your argument is now invalid.
It was Sue from the Chicago.
The only thing
who is one of the most complete T-Rex skeletons in the world.
There is only one thing that can even remotely top that, is if the ghost of Theodore Roosevelt was also side saddle on that thing.
I would have paid him to put that in.
I think the entire universe would have broken if somebody wrote that scene in a book. It's like, your entire argument is invalid.
The only thing that can counter a Chuck Norris roundhouse.
The ghost
Theodore Roosevelt on a giant zombie T-Rex.
Yeah, the ghost of Theodore Roosevelt riding the T-Rex.
Or just Theodore Roosevelt, because it was Theodore Roosevelt and he's just that hard to kill.
It's just awesome. Bully!
This is the man who was shot at the beginning of a speech. Changed the beginning of his speech by saying, "For those of you who are unaware, I have just been shot, but it takes more than that to kill a bull moose." And gave the full speech as written before leaving.
Yep. To go to the hospital.
I mean, come on. He, like, at any given point in time, could have just quoted anything of Juggernaut's actual original lines, and nobody would have questioned it.
Yeah.
Don't you know who I am? I'm the Juggernaut.
So
insert.
Now that we've plugged my favorite series, we've done best vampire movies. Much harder one, best werewolf movies.
Got it.
I do have a list for that too.
Mm-hmm.
Same.
Okay, what are your lists? Because I have a hard time thinking of more than maybe 2 or 3.
Okay,
You want to go first, Brian?
Sure. My favorite is still the Wolfman.
Yep.
The original Wolfman, because you can't. Although I do like the remake as well, but the original you can't top Lon Chaney Jr. Silver Bullet, the Stephen King werewolf, just because it's not the best special effects, but it's a terrifying concept of a thinking werewolf that plans, and the idea of those things together is really, really terrifying, especially when he's going after a little kid in a wheelchair. I mean, this is an uneven...
It is a good... I hadn't even thought of it, but it is a really good werewolf movie.
It's an uneven matchup as ever there was, but it's amazing, and it plays out really nicely. That's a good one. American Werewolf in London, of course. The Howling, the original.
Great movie.
Except no substitutions. And the last one probably... Little
Abbott and Costello meet Frankenstein.
Yeah, a little bit of a stretch, but yeah, I could certainly throw that one in there.
Lon Chaney Jr. back as the Wolfman.
Yeah,
with Bela as Dracula.
Yep.
It is too much win not to be included on the list.
It's a fantastic movie. It really is.
I can agree.
All right,
so how about you, Baron?
All right, number one, The Howling.
Great movie. No denying it.
No denying that. The second one obviously was Stephen King's Silver Bullet.
Yeah,
I actually enjoyed that one as well.
Excellent.
All right. I enjoyed... You see, the thing is, the original Wolfman definitely an American Werewolf in London, but my number 5 is certainly different.
Oh?
Monster Squad.
Oh! Well, I think Monster Squad is just... It's an epic match. It's possibly the greatest Monster Mash movie ever made.
Agreed.
Yeah.
It just runs on Rule of Cool.
It really does. It's a lot of fun.
It is. And the thing is that you had you had one monster that was not really a monster with a kind and gentle soul, a.k.a. Frank.
Yep.
All right. And then you had a redeemed one in the werewolf itself, the Wolfman, and had the best line ever.
Wolfman's got nards!
Kick him in the nards!
Plus, especially, the three of us being in the same age bracket.
Yeah.
Seeing that as a kid, and how much of a childhood wish fulfillment. It's like, wait. Me and my group of friends actually get to go kill the monsters while the adults are totally useless.
Yeah. Agreed.
It was pretty much Goonies. Goonies meets Monsters.
Sticking the dynamite down the werewolf's pants and lighting it. The werewolf exploding and pulling itself back together because
having that
Silver Bullet is the only way to kill a werewolf.
Yeah, that was ridiculous, but awesome.
And not to mention, and I forget the actor's name, but the guy playing Dracula, and just the fact he is clearly loving every second of that movie.
Yeah, he was good.
There's the TV tropes concept of chewing the scenery for when an actor's really hamming it up.
Oh,
and it's like, there are
Dracula's
fang marks on every piece of scenery in that movie.
Yeah, that's an old theater term.
Yeah, and it's one of those times it just works. It's like, no, the movie had the only way to make that movie work was to be over the top, and it was.
Yeah, you couldn't play that movie straight.
I heard, and I'm mostly terrified of the idea, though slightly curious, that somebody's trying to remake it.
I've heard that as well.
I would so fund that myself.
If it was done well, it could be
That's
amazing.
the thing. It's like, this could be amazing. This could be a lot of fun.
I mean, look
but
at
they could really
Things.
Screw this up.
Look at Stranger Things and how good that is.
If anyone listening to us has not seen Stranger Things, get a Netflix account now if you don't have one and watch it.
Or just buy the.
I'm sorry.
Buy the series.
It never really jived for me. I think I'm like one of the two people on the planet that didn't really like Stranger Things.
Yeah.
It's as I've seen it said, it's the most 80s, as I've said of it myself for that matter, it is the most 80s thing not made in the 80s you will ever find.
Oh, yeah. Oh, it's a complete homage to the 80s.
It almost reminds me of a Tarantino film as being the most 70s thing you will ever see that was not made in the 70s.
Well, the other thing I will say of it is the most Stephen King movie not written by Stephen King.
Yeah, it really is.
So many of his tropes make up that movie, but they do it so well.
It feels like a Stephen King movie.
Of Stephen King movies, here's a movie I happen to like. I'm curious of your guys' take on the new It.
Yeah, very good. I liked it.
I'm waiting for the second half before I do my complete judgment because the book was released as one. I'm going to wait until both halves.
That's fair. I happen to like it. I thought the changes made sense and worked fairly well.
Yeah.
Agreed. Although Tim Curry as the clown was a hell of a lot scarier.
Granted,
he was, but the kids were really solid.
The kids
are real solid.
I would agree that Pennywise isn't as. I mean, I thought Bill Skarsgård did a good job as Pennywise, but he's not Tim Curry.
No one is Tim Curry.
No, he's not.
I mean, we have to acknowledge no one is Tim Curry
except Tim Curry,
and I thought he did a fine job. But I would agree. The clown is probably the weakest part of the first movie. Yeah. We'll see how the second half goes. And let's also acknowledge, just for the record, that the original TV movie It was just epic.
Oh yeah, it was
in large part Tim Curry
TV show budget and working around the restrictions of being on network TV at that time. It's an amazing.
And here's the thing: you guys may know this, but I bet all of our listeners don't. The true thing about Tim Curry in relation to his part as Pennywise that makes it all the more epic. It means that nobody has any sympathy for him ever. Tim Curry is deathly afraid of clowns.
Yep.
He actually had it written into his contract. No one on set was allowed to have a mirror, and he actually got a makeup person fired for having a mirror, just because he didn't want to.
He could not see himself in that costume without freaking out.
The other,
I don't blame him.
This also led to he was invited to come to the set of the remake, and nobody had told Bill Skarsgård about Tim Curry's severe phobia.
Skarsgård, yeah.
And Skarsgård decided to, what he thought was in good fun. In fairness, the man probably wouldn't have done. He isn't a bad guy.
No,
and he was very nice. There's a lot of comments from the kids in the movie that he was incredibly nice to the kids.
Yeah, no, he's a good guy.
But thinking it's all in good fun, he decides to sneak up on Tim Curry and spook him, and he literally got a chair thrown at him.
Yeah, not the smartest move.
In fairness,
sneaking up on anybody one is bad enough. Somebody with chlorophobia, no.
Yeah. Now, me, if he'd done it to me, I would have been fine because I'm like one of the 3 people in the world that has absolutely no fear of clowns.
I'm not really scared. None either. I'm not scared of clowns.
Okay, so we're like the 3 people on the planet that aren't afraid of clowns.
Yeah.
Spiders, on the other hand, and I heard they're remaking Arachnophobia. The answer is no. That's nope. The movie.
Oh, jeez, that does not.
Spiders don't bother me either.
I'm not a fan of spiders.
I will say this: I don't mock people for having phobias, even if clowns in particular. I'm just like, why are you afraid of them?
Probably it has to do with it happens.
Half the people I know that are afraid of clowns are afraid of clowns because of Tim Curry as the adult.
Oh yeah,
they freely admit that.
Or something happened in childhood. Yeah. They get clowns get too close to them when they're kids. Yeah. They freak out. Mm-hmm. Yeah,
there's some sort of childhood trauma associated.
That's how most phobias start.
My fear is heights. I freeze up.
Yeah, I'm not good with extreme heights either.
Snakes don't bother me. Spiders don't bother me. Clowns don't bother me. I'm not a big fan of needles either.
Well, who likes needles?
Needles will.
Some people I've met people that like needles.
Scare me.
Yeah.
But I go beyond the skeeve level, which is why I say I kind of have a needle phobia.
Okay.
But beyond that, it's like. Yeah, and granted, there is what I do for fun.
So getting back to what you do for fun and our topic, let's hear your picks of the best ghost movies.
The best ghost/demon movies.
Your favorites.
So I think hands down my favorite, and I think this actually does hold the place as my favorite horror movie of all time, is The Exorcist. It is,
that one definitely has its merits.
It's a beautifully done movie by somebody who understands horror and
Catholicism
and understands Catholicism. Because so many other people, it's like you really don't understand this. Yeah. And the thing is, they had a pair of Jesuit priests as technical advisors on that movie, with the exception of the kid's head spinning all the way around. Everything you see in that movie happens during actual cases of demonic possession and exorcism. You almost never see all of those things happen in the same case, but across like 10 maybe different cases. Everything you see in that movie is completely realistic except for the head.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because the body just wouldn't survive that.
Yeah. I think number 2 would have to be the Conjuring.
Okay.
Okay.
Which leads to a plug for a project I'm finally getting wrapped up on. So, folks who followed me on YouTube for a while will know a frequent guest I had on YouTube. Sadly, he's never been able to make it to this show because he's in California. So when we start at 6:30, it's still during the workday for the man. is a guy who goes by the name of Lupus Creepus. He does, and go check him out on YouTube, Lupus Creepus. He does a lot of ritual pastas, things like Bloody Mary and things like that, if you don't know what a ritual pasta is. And he'll do them live on camera to show you what happens. And the answer is nothing. But he and I are pretty good friends. We've collaborated once, we've done interviews. He was originally my first choice for co-host, but he couldn't do the time slots. So he and I are going to collaborate on doing a series of movie and other horror reviews, and the first one, which we're hoping to film probably live around the 4th, is going to be The Conjuring.
Nice.
Our original idea, because he's big with the creepypastas, is we were going to do Sci-Fi Channel's Channel Zero, but let me just say this.
Get to it.
We won't. We really won't.
Yeah.
Because for anyone who's curious, Channel Zero takes 3 creepypastas so far. The first one being Candle Cove, the second one being No End House, and the third one being a series of stories called Search and Rescue. Now, I'm not a big fan of Candle Cove. My fiance is, but I really like the Search and Rescue stories, and I really like No End House. And the acting is terrible. The story, they completely changed the story without even keeping the essence of the original. And the changes were bad. The story is bad. Lupus and I, we were talking about it. It's like we were gonna. And I said to him when I contacted him, because he's been busy with real life, which is why we haven't done it so far. It's like, so okay, are you still interested in doing this? Yeah. And it's like, okay, do we still want to do this? Because honestly, I can't finish this. It's such a terrible TV series. And he's like, yeah, I can't either. It's like, okay, what else are we going to do?
We are getting close on time. You should finish up your list.
Conjuring, the original Amityville Horror. Let's see. And surprisingly enough, for how many people would traditionally in this situation say the original, the remake of 13 Ghosts.
Yeah, I like that one too. It's good.
The original wasn't a bad movie. I really liked it as a kid. Watching it again when I was older, I didn't like it as much, but I definitely think the remake was much more solid. The plot certainly made more sense to me. Let's see, trying to think of a fifth good one, without just saying, yeah, The Conjuring 2 was actually pretty good. Yeah, I'll go with Conjuring.
They were all based off of something real.
Yep.
Yeah. Well,
I will say, on the other hand, also based on something real, Annabelle is one of the most horrible horror movies I've ever seen on every level.
I've got the Ghostbusters.
I was going for the serious horror. If you want to just say ghost movies in general, Ghostbusters would be tied for first place.
See, for me, I don't watch ghost movies generally. So,
but the Ghostbusters is absolutely brilliant.
Ghostbusters, The Frighteners,
also brilliant.
Poltergeist, the original,
brilliant.
That's about it. That's what I've got for ghosts.
But for anyone who hasn't heard me tell the story before, seeing the original Ghostbusters in theaters as a kid is why I'm sitting here today.
Yeah,
awesome sauce.
How about you, Baron? What are your favorite ghost movies?
Blair Witch, Paranormal Activity, The Exorcist. Oh my goodness. There's two more. Conjuring and the original Amityville Horror.
All solid choices. I will say I like Blair Witch, though I find there's some movies every time you watch it gets better. For me,
Blair Witch doesn't hold up.
For me, it's with Blair Witch. It's the opposite. Every time I watch the movie, I like it less.
Yeah, that's
it. It was a good movie, but it doesn't.
It's gimmicky.
It's a little too gimmicky, and once you know the gimmicks,
yeah.
Well, yeah.
But it's a groundbreaking movie. It's an important movie.
Yeah.
And I have a great deal of respect for what they did, especially just the brilliance of the concept of they just sent these people out into the woods and left them drop-offs
with like note cards and stuff. Yeah,
they'd leave them drop supplies.
Yeah,
and they'd find like a film canister. They'd open up and there's just a note: "You don't trust so and so today for some reason."
Right.
And then they come by the tents at night and screw with them. Mm-hmm. It was a brilliant way to do a movie. It did not and it's important. It did not invent the found footage genre.
No,
I believe Cannibal Holocaust predated it.
Oh yeah.
And there's a lesser known movie that wrongly tried to claim that Blair Witch stole the idea, called The Last Broadcast, which was actually it's a very different, very good found footage movie.
Yeah.
About the Jersey Devil, and I don't saying more about it than that sort of spoils what makes the movie interesting. But I recommend checking that out. I'll say another found footage movie that I would recommend that I think people don't know as much about. There's a movie called The St. Francisville Experiment.
Got it.
Oh yeah.
You've seen it?
Yeah, I do, and I have.
I personally like it better than Blair Witch Project.
It has a lot of certain elements that are very, very good to watch.
It's also
there's another one that's called the 909 Experiment that's almost in the exact same vein.
I'll have to check that one out. I was going to say, as an investigator, what I like best about St. Francisville Experiment is the movie. Well, one, there's the Troy Baker, I forget his name, but the one paranormal investigator in there is an actual paranormal investigator. The other is the movie is like a textbook example of what never, ever, ever to do in a haunted house. If I wanted to show a new investigator a movie to explain what not to do when we go out on a case, that would be the one.
Just show that movie.
The psychic in that movie, it's like, yeah, especially the psychic in the movie getting bent over and, beaten like the redheaded stepchild by the spirit was extraordinarily satisfying to me, just because I've dealt with that particular vein of psychic, which is the very love and light, and all spirits they just want to communicate. They're not here to hurt us, and that drives me so crazy because I dealt with people that really think that way. And there's something very gratifying as an investigator of violent hauntings to see them get their comeuppance.
Agreed.
Nice.
But we're running out of time, and
I thought of one more movie though, Devil's Advocate.
Beyond doubt, one of the greatest paranormal movies I had ever seen.
For just movies about demonic or
topic
whatever.
We should do in the near future. And that movie ties into it nicely. Deals with the devil.
Oh yeah, yeah, that's a good.
Yeah,
somebody write this down because we always forget our topic ideas. Later.
Well, I'm thinking.
I will remember it.
Okay.
If you're up to it and you're available next week, why don't we just do it next week?
We could.
Sounds fantastic.
All the fun stories and movies about
about and the actual legends because they're. Yeah. And fun fact, just to give everybody a tease for next week, the first known case of somebody selling their soul to the devil is a Catholic saint.
Ooh.
Believe it.
We'll get into the story of how that happens and why they're a saint next week.
There we go.
Cliffhangers.
Yes, we need to start doing cliffhangers to get people to watch next time.
Okay, so we're going to wrap this up, folks. I want to thank everybody for tuning in.
Yes.
Baron, thank you so much for joining us. You've, as always, been absolutely fantastic.
Yeah. It's a lot more fun
tomorrow,
with 3 people.
next week.
Yep, and you always are welcome to chime in. Ladies and gentlemen, please do remember to like. If you enjoyed this video, please like, comment, subscribe. Please consider checking out either of our sponsors. Again, audibletrial.com/paranormale or NordVPN. Also, if you don't need internet security and you don't have, you already have your Audible account, you can always consider supporting us on Patreon, patreon.com/demonology, patreon.com/demonology. But again, if
you buy some books.
Or buy Brian's books you can find them all on Amazon.
Yes.
If you don't have if you're broke, believe me, we understand that. Again, like, share, comment, and subscribe are some of the most useful things you can do that won't cost us a penny.
Exactly.
So that's going to do it for tonight. This is Kevin Mears.
And Brian McKinley.
And Chris, you want to say goodnight?
Have a good night, folks. This was Baron Voltage.
Good night and God bless.
Live long and prosper.
Tune in next for Age Out Angels, which is the next show coming up here on Hamilton Radio. The host is a great guy, and he's ready to start. So we'll be starting soon. Have a good night, folks.